Welcome to this Limitless podcast Waypoint session. A waypoint is defined as an intermediate point on a route or line of travel, a stopping place on a journey. Hopefully this waypoint will mark a point of interest on your journey and contribute to your limitless endeavors. Stay tuned. In this Waypoint episode, let's talk about coolers, and we're not going to talk about hard-sided coolers here. I want to talk about soft-sided coolers that we as outdoorsmen travel with, specifically air travel, to get our harvest from wherever we're at out of state to wherever we need to be in state. Or it could be another means of transporting game, specifically maybe turkeys, when you don't need a big full-size hard cooler and you want to just use a smaller, lighter, more easily transportable cooler option. But more specifically, let's talk about when we're flying. So I'm a huge Grizzly cooler fan. They make an awesome hard-sided cooler. They're at the peak of the market with their products. They have soft-sided coolers. I do not use their soft-sided coolers, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. They are smaller, and they're not designed the same as the other two options that I've used in the past. So first one that I want to talk about is the Yeti M30. So I've used the Yeti M30 until a year and a half ago, and I've had great success with it. The M30 is a 6.8 pound cooler. So it's 6.5 pounds in itself. As a carry-on, that's not the best option. It does work, but it's heavy on its own. It does hold 42 cans, so if you were to fill this cooler with nothing but cans of beer or soda, it'll hold 42 individual cans. They also advertise that it will hold 32 pounds of ice. The overall dimensions of this thing is 12 by 17 by 25, give or take a few quarter inches. What does that translate to? It translates to meat or fish or a poultry that is kept cold from a coast-to-coast flight. And it will fit in a lot of overhead compartments, but it is awkward. And as you can see, if you've never seen the Hopper series by Yeti, they do make a 20 and a 30. I'm not sure if they make anything smaller, but they do make a 20 and they make the 30. It has an interesting shape to it. And again, it's 6.5 pounds on its own. That's a heavy bag. It's very well insulated. It's thick, it's robust, and I've yet to have any damage done to this cooler while flying. Now typically I will check through at the airport with this as a carry-on item, and then once I get to the gate I ask them how full the flight is, and they will more often than not allow you to check a bag at the gate at no charge. So that's my tactic. I can check in 1-2 bags, maybe a gun case or my bow case at the counter, have this planned as a carry-on with another bag that has electronics, computer, books, snacks, whatever. And then when I get to the gate, I check this through and off it goes. Never had any issues with it. And again, I have flown coast to coast. Meat stays cold, meat stays frozen. Then I was introduced to the half rack. Now half rack has two sizes of coolers. I'm gonna focus on what they call their airline model. And I've really been impressed with this thing. The first noticeable difference between the half rack cooler and the Yeti M30 is the weight. This thing is 3 pounds, so it's half the weight of the Yeti. And on top of that, the shape of it is designed more like a regular bag, and that dudes at half rack designed this cooler to actually fit in most overhead compartments of an aircraft. So just the design of it is more air travel friendly than the Yeti Hopper. This holds 55 cans, so half the weight. It holds you know, 12, 15 more cans than the Yeti does. They don't advertise the max amount of weight in this cooler, but I've had over 21 pounds of ice in this bag, plus a full turkey, and I still had ample room if I wanted to continue to dump ice inside this bag. Now, I also want to caveat this. Your crushed ice, your cubed ice, the shape of that frozen ice is going to impact how much that you're going to get packed into either one of these coolers, so please keep that in mind. The dimensions on this guy is 11 by 15 by 21. Now, with your savings in weight, you will notice that if you feel the material between the two, that the Yeti seems to be thicker, and at first glance, it feels like it's just a more robust bag. This thing is almost bulletproof. I've had a lot of fun traveling with this the last year and a half. Zero issues, zero damage. They both have shoulder straps. I like the handles on the half rack more. The other thing that I do, hopefully you can see this, you'll see that's Gorilla Tape that's crisscrossed over an air tag. So anytime that I'm flying for a hunting trip, I put an air tag in all my bags. Anything that I believe that I plan to check or that I believe I will possibly check, I put an air tag in it. That air tag allows me to track that bag wherever it goes. So if I depart the East Coast, name an airport, Salisbury Regional is where I typically travel out of now, and I get to Philly, I can see if they lose my bag or they tell me that my bag is lost, I can open up that tracker in my iPhone and I can see where it's at. And if they tell me it never left Salisbury, but it's showing that it's sitting in Philly, well, it's sitting in Philly, or vice versa. So that gives me that sense of security. Even more importantly, you can put that air tag in your bow case, and now you know where your bow or your gun case is at all times. I have traveled, again, from Salisbury Regional Airport all the way out to Portland, Oregon to hunt with my father. And that's a long trip from Salisbury, because from Salisbury, you're routed to either Philadelphia or Charlotte, North Carolina. And from there, you might have another stop. I've had up to 3 stops. When I returned when I went out in this last spring to turkey hunt, I took venison burger, venison roasts, a piece of back strap, and some striper. All of it was pre-frozen before I left. I did not put any dry ice or any other ice inside this cooler. I wrapped everything in a towel, put it inside this bag, zipped it up, got on a plane. I had several delays. It took me far longer to get from Maryland to Oregon than I had planned. And when we finally arrived at my mom and dad's across the Columbia River in Washington, everything inside this cooler was still frozen. It was over 12 hours of travel. Now coming back, I had a turkey with me. Put the turkey inside this bag, everything was frozen, wrapped it in a towel, put it on the plane. It took me over 14 hours to get home. That turkey was still frozen inside this bag. So what are my likes and dislikes? Oh my goodness, look at this. I have Wilderness Athlete hydration and energy mixes in this cooler. It's because it's prepped for an upcoming hunt that I'm going to travel on, and it's going to be my carry-on. Anyhow, what do I like? What do I dislike? So the Yeti, I don't like the price. I love Yeti tumblers. We have a couple of their coolers. We've had them for a long time. They're great. I don't like the price. I don't like the shape, and I don't like the weight of this cooler, but it's a great cooler, and my wife loves the color. What do I like and not like about the half rack? I like how light it is. I like the shape of it. I like the design of it. I don't care for these side straps on this cooler. They don't stay tight. So no matter how hard you pull on them, by the time you get to your destination, they've come loose, and these flaps they're just moving around loose. That's one thing that I don't care about this cooler. The other thing that I'm not a huge fan of is there's no way for me to secure these straps by design, the hand grips, the hand straps of this cooler as it comes. So I have to take some type of Velcro or tape if I want to keep these handles from flopping around as well. Those are the only dislikes of this cooler, very minor. The overall performance of it, outstanding. So I've discussed this topic over a year ago with a good friend of mine, Al Quackenbush, when we were hosting or co-hosting, however you want to phrase that, the Sprocket and Chubbs Outdoor Podcast. We did a whole episode on flying with coolers, why we do it, what we use. We did capture the AirTag piece, but that content is no longer available. So I wanted to rip another episode for you guys, get it out on YouTube, actually show you these coolers, talk about what I've used, what I am using, why I'm using them. And I don't get on an airplane anymore to pursue big game without some type of a carry-on cooler. What it allows me to, like for a turkey, I can put a whole bird in here. I can put 2 birds in here if I want to. And in a lot of states, if you have the time and you want to buy the tags, you can buy multiple tags, harvest multiple birds if you have the opportunity. You can get those birds home in this cooler. For deer and elk or bear, and this is my plan for this season, when I travel out to Idaho, if I harvest an elk or a mule deer, I'm going to have that meat processed in state and then have it shipped home, except for the back straps or the tenderloins. I want to bring that back with me, so I plan to have that frozen before getting on the plane, and I'm going to put it in my half rack, and I will bring my back straps and the tenderloins home and have it on site. My wife's never had elk. I love elk, so we want to celebrate that harvest together if everything goes as planned, and not have to wait for the meat processor to finish processing and then the shipment process and the weeks that's going to take. I can actually bring that prized meat home with me. Super simple, super easy. So that's the trick on coolers, guys. I'll wrap this Waypoint up with, we've got some great sponsors for the Limitless podcast. We have On Point Adventure Foods, Vortex Optics, Phelps Game Calls, Hunting Day Coffee, the Love Sauce Hot Sauce, and Wilderness Athlete. I'm not going to share those codes on this Waypoint. We're going to keep this one short and brief. It's a cool episode, it's a cool Waypoint, but we want to keep it to a minimum. But go back to previous episodes, check out those listener codes for you. There's no kickback to the Limitless podcast. If you use those codes, they're purely for your benefit. So thanks for listening. If you have any other questions about traveling with coolers and meat, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram, Facebook, on the Limitless Outdoors website, and or you can direct message me or make comments on the YouTube, because this will be published on all of your major podcast platforms, and then the video version will be on YouTube. So thanks for listening in. Be limitless.